The last words my husband ever spoke to me as my husband were,
"You'll never survive without me."
Those 6 words echoed through my heart for years. My name is Grace Adeyemi. I thought we were building a family.
The last words my husband ever spoke to me as my husband were, "You'll never survive without me." Those 6 words echoed through my heart for years, not because they were true, but because I spent years proving they weren't. My name is Grace Adeyemi. There was a time when I believed my life was perfect. I had a husband I loved with all my heart, 2 beautiful little boys, and another baby growing safely beneath my heart. I thought we were building a family. I didn't know I was building it alone. It was a humid Tuesday evening in Lagos. The rain had just stopped. Our tiny rented apartment smelled of fresh beans cooking on the stove. The television was on. The children were laughing. My eldest son, Daniel, was trying to teach his younger brother, David, how to count. "No, David. It's 1, 2, 3. David laughed. "No, it's 1, 5, 10. Daniel burst into laughter. "Mummy, David is cheating again." Grace smiled from the kitchen. "Leave your brother alone. He's still learning." She gently rubbed her swollen stomach. The baby kicked. She smiled. "You heard your brothers, didn't you?" At that moment, the front door opened. Her husband, Michael, walked in. He wasn't smiling. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't carry the boys the way he usually did. Instead, he walked straight into the bedroom. Grace frowned. "Michael." No answer. She switched off the stove, wiped her hands on her apron, and followed him. He was throwing clothes into a suitcase. Shirts, shoes, documents, everything. Grace laughed nervously. "What are you doing?" No reply. She walked closer. "Michael, talk to me." He zipped the suitcase. "I'm leaving." Grace smiled. "Leaving? For where?" He looked directly into her eyes. "For good." For a moment, the world stopped. Grace searched his face, waiting for him to smile, waiting for him to say it was a joke. He didn't. She whispered, "I don't understand." Michael sighed heavily. "I've met someone else." Grace felt the room spinning. "What?" "I've met someone else. This marriage is over." She stared at him, unable to breathe. "You have children." "I know. I'm carrying your baby." "I know. Then why?" Michael picked up the suitcase. "I'm tired of struggling. I found someone who understands the life I deserve." Grace shook her head. "No, this isn't you. We've struggled together before. We always found a way." He looked away. "Not this time." Grace grabbed his arm. "Please, if I've done something wrong, tell me. We'll fix it. We've always fixed things." Michael slowly removed her hand. "It's too late." Tears streamed down her face. "What about Daniel? What about David? What about this baby?" Michael looked at her stomach for only a second, then looked away. "They'll survive." Grace couldn't believe what she was hearing. The children need their father. They'll grow. They'll forget. Grace's voice broke. No child forgets a father. Silence. The only sound in the room was the ticking wall clock. Outside, a car horn sounded. Michael walked toward a window, then quietly said, "She's here." Grace looked outside. A brand new black Range Rover stood in front of the building. Inside sat an elegant woman wearing expensive sunglasses. She didn't look toward the house. She simply waited. Grace looked back at Michael. "So, this has been happening?" He didn't answer. "How long?" Again, silence. She nodded slowly. "I see." Then she asked a question that broke every heart. "Did you ever love me?" Michael closed his eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I did." Grace wiped her tears. "Then what happened?" He answered honestly. "I chose comfort over commitment." Grace stood there, speechless, not because another woman had taken her husband, but because the Moan she married no longer existed. The children ran into the bedroom. "Daddy." Daniel smiled. "Are we going somewhere?" Michael looked at his sons. For a brief second, his eyes filled with regret. David hugged his father's leg. "Daddy, you promised to buy biscuits." Michael knelt slowly. He kissed both boys on the forehead. "I'm sorry." Daniel frowned. "When are you coming back?" Michael couldn't answer. Grace quietly turned the boys toward her. "Go and wait for Mummy in the sitting room." "But Daddy, please." The boys obeyed. Michael picked up his suitcase. Grace followed him to the front door. She wasn't crying anymore. She simply looked tired, very tired. As Michael stepped outside, Grace spoke one final time. "You once promised that no matter how hard life became, you would never leave us." Michael lowered his head. "I know. And today, you've broken more than a promise." He looked back at her. "I'm sorry." Grace nodded. "So am I." Michael walked toward the waiting SUV. The rich woman smiled as he entered. The vehicle pulled away. Grace stood at the gate, watching until the taillights disappeared. Only then did she allow herself to fall to her knees. The rain began again. Daniel ran outside. "Mummy." He wrapped his tiny arms around her neck. "Why are you crying?" Grace hugged both boys tightly. She placed one hand on her stomach, then whispered through her tears, "Listen to me. You may grow up without your father, but you will never grow up without love. I don't know how. I don't know when, but I promise you, I will give you a life no one will ever pity." The rain continued to fall. Inside her womb, the baby kicked again, as if reminding her that tomorrow was still waiting. Grace had no money, no plan, no family nearby, only 3 children, and a promise she could not afford to break. She had no idea that one day, the man who had just driven away would return to this same woman, broken, alone, unable to walk, begging for one more chance. 3 days after Michael left, Grace sat on the edge of her bed. The apartment was unusually quiet. Daniel and David were still asleep. She hadn't slept all night. The landlord had knocked twice. The electricity had been disconnected. There was only 1 cup of rice left in the kitchen. Grace opened her handbag. She emptied everything onto the bed. A few crumpled Naira notes, an office ID card, a small bottle of perfume, a wedding photograph. She picked up the picture. Michael was smiling. His arm rested proudly around her shoulders. She stared at it for a long time, then quietly placed it inside a drawer. This chapter is over. Just then, a sharp pain shot through her lower back. She grabbed her stomach. The baby kicked. Grace smiled through her tears. "No, you are not coming today. We still have work to do." The next morning, she dressed carefully. A simple navy blue office skirt, a white blouse. Her black shoes had begun to peel at the edges. She looked into the mirror. Her swollen eyes betrayed a night of crying. She washed her face, forced a smile, then whispered, "Today, we survive." Daniel walked into the room. "Mummy, are you going to work?" Grace knelt beside him. "Yes." "Who's taking care of us?" She kissed his forehead. "Grandma Ngozi next door." Daniel hesitated. "Mummy, is Daddy still angry?" Grace felt her heart tighten. She gently held his little face. "No, my son. Sometimes adults make mistakes. But one thing you must never doubt." She pointed to his chest. "You are loved." Daniel nodded. "I'll help David today." Grace smiled proudly. "I know you will." At the office, no one knew her marriage had collapsed. Grace answered calls, typed reports, prepared meeting documents, smiled at clients. But every time her phone vibrated, her heart skipped. Maybe Michael had changed his mind. Maybe he was coming home. Each time, it was someone else. By lunchtime, she checked her bank account. The salary had arrived. She smiled, then frowned. Almost all of it disappeared immediately. Rent, school fees, hospital bills, food. Transportation. She stared at the remaining balance. It wasn't enough, not even close. That evening, instead of going home, Grace entered the office restroom. She removed her heels, changed into simple slippers, tied an apron around her waist, packed freshly cooked food into stainless containers. Outside the office building, her colleague, Sandra, stopped in her tracks. Grace. Grace smiled. Good evening. Sandra looked at the food cooler. What are you doing? I'm going to work. Sandra laughed. You've been working all day. Grace smiled again. My second job. You mean you're selling food? Grace nodded. Sandra couldn't hide her surprise. An office administrator? Selling food by the roadside? Grace closed the cooler gently. My children can't eat my job title. Sandra stood speechless. Grace picked up the cooler, balanced it carefully, then walked toward a bus stop. By 6 o'clock, she stood beside a busy Lagos road. Steam rose from large pots. The aroma of jollof rice filled the evening air. Hot rice, fresh pepper soup. And you do. Workers returning home stopped by. Commercial drivers lined up. Security guards bought takeaway meals. Grace smiled at every customer. Thank you. God bless you. Safe journey. By 10 o'clock, her feet ached, her back burned. The baby kicked repeatedly. An elderly customer noticed. My daughter, you should be resting. Grace smiled. I'll rest when my children have eaten. The old man looked at her for a long moment, then quietly paid for 2 meals. I only ordered one. He smiled. The second one is for you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sir. Close to midnight, she finally returned home. Daniel was still awake. He ran into her arms. Mummy, you came. Grace laughed softly. I promised I would. He looked at the empty food containers. Did you sell everything? Grace nodded. Almost. Daniel smiled proudly. You'll become rich. Grace laughed. I don't need to be rich. I only need to keep my promises. Weeks turned into months. Grace lived the same routine. Office by day, street food by night, mother every minute. She slept barely 4 hours each night. Her hands became rough. Her feet swelled. But every morning, she got up again. One rainy evening, business was slow. Most food vendors packed up early. Grace stayed. The rain soaked her apron. Cold wind blew across the street. A black luxury SUV slowed as it passed. She barely noticed. Inside the vehicle, Michael looked out through the tinted window. Their eyes met for only a second. Grace froze. Michael looked away. The SUV drove on. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them waved. But Grace noticed one thing. The woman sitting beside him was laughing. Grace looked up at the dark sky, took a deep breath, then whispered to herself, one day, you will laugh again too. She picked up the serving spoon. The next customer stepped forward. Madam, 1 plate of jollof rice. Grace smiled, coming right up. She had no idea that the little roadside food stand would one day grow into one of the biggest catering companies in Lagos. 9 months after Michael walked away, Grace gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She named her Hope because that was the only thing she refused to lose. The hospital room was quiet. Other new mothers celebrated with flowers, balloons, family members, laughter. Grace had none of those. She held her daughter close, then whispered, your father isn't here. But one day, you'll know you were never abandoned by God. An elderly nurse standing nearby smiled. My daughter, you're stronger than you know. Grace smiled weakly. No, I'm just a mother. 3 days later, she returned to work, not because she had recovered, because life refused to wait. Every morning, she dressed the children, prepared breakfast, dropped Daniel and David at school, left baby Hope with Mama Ngozi next door, then hurried to the office before 8. Every evening, she became someone else. The office administrator disappeared. The food seller came alive. One rainy night, a young woman stopped at her stand. "One plate of fried rice, please." Grace served her with a smile. The lady took one spoonful, then looked up. "This is delicious." "Thank you." "Who taught you to cook?" Grace smiled. "My mother." The lady handed her a business card. "I'm having a small birthday party next Saturday. Can you cook for 30 people? Grace stared at the card. "I've never done catering before." The woman smiled. "Everyone starts somewhere. I believe in you." Grace looked at the card again. It felt like someone had opened a door she never knew existed. That Saturday, Grace barely slept. She borrowed extra cooking pots from neighbors, hired 2 women to help, started cooking before dawn. Rice, chicken, mwamwa, salad, peppered turkey. By afternoon, everything was ready. She watched nervously as guests began eating. Minutes later, one woman walked over. "Excuse me." Grace's heart raced. "Yes, Ma?" "This is the best jollof rice I've tasted in years." Another guest joined them. "Who cooked the peppered turkey?" "I did." "You should be running a restaurant." Grace laughed. "I'm just trying to feed my children." The guests exchanged glances. One businessman reached into his pocket. "I'm getting married in 3 months. I want you to handle my wedding." Grace blinked. "My wedding?" He smiled. "No, my wedding food." Everyone laughed. Grace laughed too, but inside, something had changed. For the first time since Michael left, she could see a future. Months passed. Weekend after weekend, the catering jobs increased. Birthday parties, church events, office meetings, naming ceremonies, small weddings. Grace saved every naira she could. She stopped buying new clothes. She repaired old shoes instead. Every profit went into one envelope. On the front she wrote, "My restaurant." One afternoon, her office manager called her in. "Grace, I've been watching you." She smiled nervously. "I hope I've done nothing wrong." He shook his head. "You work harder than anyone here, but you're always tired." Grace lowered her head. "I have another job." "I know." He smiled kindly. "I've eaten your food." Grace looked surprised. "You have?" "It was excellent." He leaned forward. "Tell me something. If money wasn't a problem, what would you really want to do?" Grace answered without thinking. "I'd cook. I'd build a restaurant. I'd employ widows. I'd train young people. I'd feed families." The manager smiled. "Then why are you sitting behind this desk?" Grace sighed. "Because dreams don't pay rent." The manager reached into his drawer. He handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" "A bonus." Grace looked confused. "But it's not bonus season." "It isn't. It's an investment. In you." Tears filled her eyes. "Sir, I don't know what to say." He smiled warmly. "When your restaurant opens, I'll be your first customer." 2 years later, Grace stood in front of a small rented shop. The paint was fresh. The signboard had just been mounted. It read, "Grace's Kitchen." She held the keys with trembling hands. Daniel, now older, smiled proudly. "Mummy, is this ours?" Grace nodded. Every block, every chair, every spoon. David ran inside. "Mummy, people can actually sit here." Little Hope clapped excitedly. "I like the yellow walls." Grace laughed through tears. "So do I." Mom Ngozi stood quietly beside her. "I told you, God doesn't forget his children." Grace hugged the elderly woman tightly. "No, he certainly doesn't." That evening, as customers filled every table, Grace walked into the kitchen. She closed the door, looked around, then quietly cried, not because she was sad, but because she remembered the nights she sold food in the rain, the mornings she went to work without breakfast, the insults, the loneliness, the fear. Every sacrifice had brought her here. She wiped away her tears, tied her apron, opened the kitchen door. then smiled. Let's serve greatness. Outside, customers kept arriving. The little restaurant was full. Across the city, inside a luxury penthouse, Michael sat alone. The rich woman he had left his family for was arguing on the phone. Their relationship had grown cold. Money had bought comfort, but it had never bought peace. Michael walked to the balcony. He stared into the Lego skyline. For reasons he couldn't explain, he suddenly thought about Grace, about Daniel, David, and the daughter he had never even seen. For the first time in years, his success no longer felt like victory. It felt like loss. He had no idea that while Grace was building a future, his own world was quietly beginning to fall apart. 10 years passed. The small roadside food stand had become one of the fastest-growing catering businesses in Lagos. Grace no longer pushed food carts. She owned a beautiful corporate office, 3 industrial kitchens, more than 100 employees. Luxury catering trucks carried her company's logo across the city. People now called her Madam Grace, but she never allowed success to change her heart. Every Friday evening, she still visited the same roadside where she once sold food, not to work, to feed anyone who couldn't afford a meal. Street children, security guards, market women, bus drivers. Nobody left hungry. Her employees often asked, "Madam, why do you still come here?" Grace smiled, "Because the street never forgot me. And I'll never forget this street." Daniel had become a lawyer. David had just graduated as a medical doctor. Little Hope, the baby Michael abandoned before birth, was studying civil engineering at the University of Lagos. One Sunday afternoon, the 3 children sat around the dining table. Hope looked at an old family photograph. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Grace smiled. "Of course. Did Dad ever try to find us?" Silence filled the room. Daniel slowly looked down. David stopped eating. Grace took a deep breath. "No." Hope nodded quietly. "Do you hate him?" Grace looked at each of her children, then smiled gently. "No, I stopped carrying hatred a long time ago." Daniel frowned. "But after everything he did..." Grace interrupted softly. "If I carried bitterness, I would have dropped your future just to hold my past." The children looked at one another. Their mother had always answered pain with wisdom. Across the city, Michael's life was collapsing. The rich woman he had left Grace for had disappeared 2 years earlier. She left after his biggest investment failed. The luxury mansion had been sold. The expensive cars were gone. His business partners had abandoned him. The same people who once called him every day no longer answered his calls. One rainy evening, Michael sat alone in a small rented apartment. An unpaid electricity bill lay on the table. He stared at old photographs. One showed him standing proudly beside his luxury SUV. Another showed Grace on their wedding day. He picked it up. His hands trembled. "I was a fool." His phone rang. It was the bank. "Mr. Adeyemi, this is our final notice. If payment is not received by Friday, the property will be repossessed." Michael closed his eyes. "I understand." The call ended. The apartment became silent again. For the first time in his life, there was nobody to call, nobody waiting for him, nobody who cared whether he ate or slept. Money had brought many people into his life. When the money disappeared, so did they. The following morning, Michael collapsed. Neighbors heard the sound. They forced the door open. He lay on the floor, unable to move, unable to speak. One side of his body had become completely still. The ambulance arrived minutes later. At the hospital, the doctor removed his glasses. "I'm sorry. He has suffered a severe stroke. The left side of his body has been affected. It will be a long recovery." Michael tried to speak. No words came out, only tears. 3 months later, he sat alone in a wheelchair. His beard had turned gray. His once expensive suits had been replaced by worn-out clothes. He stared through the hospital window. Patients came. Patients left. Nobody came for him. One afternoon, an elderly nurse handed him a newspaper. "There's an inspiring story here. Michael wasn't interested until he saw the front page, a large photograph, a familiar face. Grace, smiling confidently in front of one of her catering companies. The headline read, "From street food vendor to Nigeria's leading catering entrepreneur." Michael's hand shook violently. He struggled to read every word. The article spoke about her determination, her resilience, her charity work, how she employed widows, sponsored orphans, built free kitchens for poor. At the bottom of the article, a family photograph appeared. Daniel, David, Hope, standing proudly beside their mother. All smiling, Michael stared at the picture for what felt like hours. Then, for the first time in 10 years, he cried without trying to hide it. He whispered with great difficulty, "I was wrong." The nurse looked at him. "Do you know her?" Michael nodded slowly. His voice cracked. "I lost everything." Then another tear rolled down his face. "Because I left everything that mattered." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He kept looking at the newspaper. Every success Grace achieved should have been celebrated together. Every birthday, every graduation, every victory. He had missed them all, not because he had to, because he chose to. As dawn broke, Michael made the hardest decision of his life. He asked the nurse for a pen and paper. His trembling hands struggled to write. The words came slowly, almost painfully. Finally, he looked up. "I need to go home." The nurse frowned gently. "Where is home?" Michael closed his eyes. For the first time in many years, his answer wasn't the mansion he had lost. It wasn't the luxury apartment. It wasn't the rich woman who had abandoned him. Home was the place he had walked away from, the little family he never should have left. He had no idea whether Grace would open the door, whether his children would recognize him, or whether forgiveness was even possible. But he knew one thing. He didn't want to die without saying, "I'm sorry." The taxi stopped quietly in front of Grace's house. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a palace. It was something far more beautiful. A home built with sacrifice. Fresh flowers lined the entrance. Children laughed in the distance. Employees greeted one another with smiles as they entered the company headquarters beside the house. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door, then carefully lifted the wheelchair. Michael looked around, his eyes filled with tears. "This should have been my home." The driver looked at him. "Sir, are you sure this is the right place?" Michael nodded slowly. It always was. Inside the compound, Grace was supervising preparations for a charity event. Hundreds of food packs were being loaded into delivery vans. One employee smiled. "Madam, we prepared 1,000 meals." Grace shook her head. "Make it 1,200. What if more people come?" Grace smiled. "Then nobody goes home hungry." Just then, the security guard hurried toward her. "Madam, someone is asking for you." Grace looked toward a gate. A wheelchair, an elderly man, thin, weak. His left hand rested lifelessly on his lap. His face had aged far beyond his years. For a brief moment, she didn't recognize him. Then, he lifted his head. Their eyes met. Grace froze. The serving spoon slipped from her hand. Everyone around her became silent. Michael tried to stand. His legs refused. He struggled to speak. Grace." Tears rolled down his face. Grace walked slowly toward him. Every step carried 10 years of memories. 10 years of pain. 10 years of unanswered questions. She finally stood before him. Neither of them spoke. The silence said everything words never could. Inside the house, Daniel arrived from court, still wearing his lawyer's robe. David came directly from the hospital. His stethoscope rested around his neck. Hope returned from a construction site, blueprints tucked beneath her arm. The three siblings stopped at the entrance. They looked at the man sitting in the wheelchair. Daniel whispered, "Mom, who is he?" Grace looked at them. Her voice remained calm. "Your father." Silence. Hope stared at him. "So, This is the Mun, who never came. Michael lowered his head, unable to meet their eyes. David slowly walked closer. He knelt beside the wheelchair. As a doctor, he noticed the signs immediately. His father's condition was worse than anyone imagined. He looked toward Grace. He needs medical care. Grace simply nodded. Then we'll care for him. Hope looked confused. Mom, after everything? Grace gently held her daughter's hand. My child, compassion isn't earned. It's chosen. Daniel swallowed hard. He walked over, then quietly said, Welcome home, Dad. At that single word, Michael broke down completely. He covered his face with his trembling hand. 4 years, he had imagined this moment. He expected anger. He expected rejection. He expected the gate to be closed. Instead, the children he abandoned were calling him Dad. Weeks passed. David became his father's doctor. Every morning, he checked his blood pressure, helped him exercise, adjusted his medications. Hope pushed his wheelchair into the garden every evening. Daniel sat with him after work, reading newspapers aloud because Michael's eyesight had become poor. Grace prepared every meal herself, just as she had done years before. One evening, Michael finally found enough strength to speak clearly. Grace. She looked up. I'm here. I rehearsed this apology. 4 years. She remained silent. I traded my family for comfort. I traded loyalty for luxury. I thought money would make me happy. He looked around the dining room. Family photographs covered the walls. Graduation pictures, birthday celebrations, business awards, every memory. Without him, he whispered, I missed everything. Grace sat opposite him. You did. I wasn't there when Daniel won his first school prize. No, I wasn't there when David became a doctor. No, I never carried hope. Grace shook her head gently. No, you never did. Michael began crying again. I don't deserve forgiveness. Grace looked at him quietly, then smiled. No, none of us do. That's why forgiveness is a gift. The room became silent. Even the children wiped away tears. Grace reached across the table. She held Michael's trembling hand. I forgave you years ago. Michael looked at her in disbelief. You did. She nodded. The day I realized, if I spent my life hating you, I would never have enough strength left to love my children. Winter came. Michael grew weaker. His breathing became slower. One cold evening, he asked Grace, Can I see everyone? She called the children. The family gathered around his bed. Michael looked at each of them. Daniel, my son, I'm proud of the man you became. David, thank you for healing the father who never healed your childhood. Hope, he reached for her hand. The daughter he had never carried, held him gently. I'm sorry. Hope smiled through tears. I know. Finally, he looked at Grace. You kept every promise. You proved me wrong. Grace smiled softly. No, I simply refuse to let your mistake become my children's future. Michael closed his eyes. One final tear rolled down his face. Thank you for bringing me home. Grace squeezed his hand. You were home the moment you knocked. Moments later, his breathing slowed, then quietly stopped. No machines, no strangers, no empty hospital room. He left this world, holding the hand of the woman he once abandoned. At the funeral, hundreds of people gathered, not because Michael had been a wealthy man, but because Grace insisted he deserved dignity in death. After the service, Hope asked the question everyone had been thinking. Mom, how did you forgive someone who caused you so much pain? Grace looked toward the sunset. She smiled, then answered slowly. Forgiveness doesn't rewrite yesterday. It protects tomorrow. If I had taught you to hate your father, I would have raised successful children with broken hearts. She looked at her 3 children, then continued, Your father's greatest failure became our greatest lesson. The camera slowly pulled away. Grace stood between her children. Their hands joined together. The house was peaceful. The business continued to grow. The grandchildren laughed in the garden. Life had moved forward, not because pain had disappeared, but because love had refused to. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments. Could you forgive someone who abandoned you and your children, or would the pain be too great to overcome? Your story may give hope to someone who is carrying a burden they have never spoken about. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories that inspire hope, healing, and second chances. Share this story with someone who needs to know that no mistake is greater than the power of forgiveness. Some wounds leave scars, but forgiveness gives those scars a purpose. Until our next story, take care of the people you love. 1 year later, Grace stood in front of a brand new building. A crowd had gathered: employees, community leaders, school children, widows, street food vendors, reporters. A young journalist adjusted her microphone. "Madam Grace, why did you build the center?" Grace smiled gently. She looked at the sign above the entrance. "The Second Chance Foundation." The audience applauded. Grace stepped toward the microphone. "There was a time when I believed my life had ended. My husband left. I was pregnant. I had 2 little boys. I cried. I struggled. I almost gave up." She paused, but God turned my pain into purpose. The crowd became silent. This foundation is for single mothers, for abandoned families, for children who think nobody sees them. She looked toward the front row. Daniel, David, Hope, now successful adults, standing proudly together. Grace smiled. "I know what it feels like to wonder how tomorrow will come. If my story can help one mother keep believing, then every tear was worth it." The audience stood and applauded. Inside the foundation, one wall carried a large inscription. It read, "Never allow someone else's decision to determine your destiny." Beneath it, another smaller plaque, dedicated to Michael. It read, "In memory of a man whose greatest lesson came too late, but whose story now teaches others to choose family before fortune." Grace insisted his name remain there, not to celebrate his mistakes, but to remind every visitor that redemption is possible, even when life doesn't give us enough time to enjoy it. As the sun began to set, Grace stood outside the building. Daniel walked beside her. "Mom, do you ever miss him?" Grace smiled. "Every day." Daniel looked surprised. "After everything?" Grace nodded. "I don't miss the man who left. I miss the man he became before he died." Daniel quietly took his mother's hand. "You taught us something." "What is that?" "That strength isn't refusing to cry. It's choosing to love again after you've cried." Grace smiled. "I think you've learned well." The camera slowly pulled away. Children played in the foundation's courtyard. Single mothers laughed together. Meals were being served. Hope supervised the construction of a new training center. David volunteered at the free clinic. Daniel provided free legal services to abandoned women. Grace watched them with tears of joy. The promise she made on that rainy afternoon had finally come true. Her children had never paid for their father's mistakes. Instead, they became the reason hundreds of other families found hope. Life will break some hearts. People will disappoint us. Promises will sometimes be broken. But your future is not written by the person who walked away. It is written by the courage to keep moving forward. If this story touched your heart, tell us in comments. What was the biggest lesson you learned from Grace's journey? If you believe forgiveness is stronger than revenge, leave a red heart in the comments. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more unforgettable stories that inspire hope, healing, and second chances. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that their greatest setback can become the beginning of their greatest purpose. Some wounds leave scars, but forgiveness gives those scars a purpose. Until our next story, take care of the people you love.